You know the saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Well, that's true for pretty much about everything in life, but especially when it comes to preventing parasites. But sometimes, even after you've done everything you can, your chickens or other livestock can still end up with a heavy parasite load. And that's what I'm going to be tackling today. Fair warning, we're going to be talking about poop and worms and poop. Hey y'all, I'm Renee and welcome to Tater Town. So today I want to talk about why it's so important to prevent parasites when you keep chickens or any livestock for that matter. And I'm doing this now because I just so happened to get through a crazy couple of weeks taking care of my flock that was infested by both external and internal parasites. And it happened even though I was doing all the things that can help prevent them. And this video is going to be in several parts because there's a lot to cover. This part will mostly be an overview of parasites, how to tell if your chickens have them, and what makes your chickens vulnerable and how you can help to prevent them. In the subsequent videos, I'll talk about what to do when prevention fails and specific treatment types. I also want to remind you that while I am a scientist, I am not a veterinarian. However, everything I do by compiling everything from my vet's recommendations to previous experience, published research, and of course the standards of care from the farming community. So what you'll get from me may be something different than what you hear from others, especially if there's a treatment that doesn't pose any risk. I will sometimes experiment with those. But some of the things I'm going to talk about can have severe consequences, and I will let you know what they are as we go. If you have any doubts, talk to your veterinarian. So what is a parasite? In very simple terms, a parasite is anything that survives by stealing the food that another living thing also needs to survive. And the important thing to know is that it relies on its host to survive, but the host is harmed by this relationship. And sometimes parasites can cause only minor damage or damage that takes a very long time to become a problem. But sometimes parasites can very rapidly cause death. And as with most livestock, they live outdoors and they are exposed to all kinds of other animals and environments, so that increases their risk of getting parasites. You can pretty much count on the fact that your animals have parasites at any given time. And their immune system does a really good job at keeping parasites in check, especially if you do things that help support their immune system. Because when an animal is... Stop! Anyway, because when an animal is healthy and not stressed, those parasites are usually not a problem. They become a problem when something else happens that allows them to exist in or on your animals in very large numbers. Think of it this way, if you have several mites sucking blood from your chicken, that's very different than having hundreds or thousands stealing blood from them. And of course, the smaller the animal, it's much easier for them to become overwhelmed in a shorter period of time. Now let's talk about the most common parasites you're likely to see in your chickens. You've got your internal parasites, and that includes roundworms, tapeworms, gateworms, and coccidia. Coccidia isn't a worm, but a protozoa or protozoan. And your chickens can get internal parasites either by directly ingesting the eggs or larvae, usually in water, food, litter, or soil that's been contaminated by infected poop. Stop! And those eggs can survive for a very long time in almost any environment. And I'll talk more about that later. They can also get internal parasites from eating other animals that are infected. Things like earthworms, slugs, and various other insects. You see why I said earlier that at any given time your chickens are already infected by parasites, but they're probably in such low numbers that it's not making them sick. Unfortunately, because they're internal, you will most likely never know they have them until your bird is showing signs that something is wrong. Unless you're doing regular checks of their poop under a microscope, and in some cases even just visibly. And of course, if you see visible worms in their poop, chances are your chicken is already heavily infested. Moving on to external parasites, or ectoparasites as they're called. I'm only telling you that because I like the word ectoparasite. These are things like lice, mites, and ticks. And because the damage they cause is on the chicken, they're typically easier to identify than internal parasites. Though you can still miss an external parasite infestation if it looks like something else. External parasites can also be a bit easier to prevent and treat, but that doesn't mean they can't do a lot of damage, including death. I want to add that most of the common parasites you will see in chickens are species specific. Not all, but most. So while the chances of you getting them from your chicken are pretty low, you still want to make sure that you're protecting yourself and your other animals so you don't risk your and their health. So what are the things that make your chickens most vulnerable? First is unsanitary conditions. Like I said earlier, contaminated feed, water, and soil can host these parasites. Weather also plays a factor. Some parasites love hot, humid weather, while others like cool, dry weather. It's the reason why some people like to deworm their chickens in the spring and then again in the fall. If your coop is made from wood, and let's face it, most of them are, or if there's a lot of cracks and crevices, mites can easily hide during the day and come out at night when the chickens are roosting. So you may never see them unless you're checking the chickens at night. And of course, a huge risk to your chickens is a weakened immune system. And that can happen from something else making them sick, if they're stressed from overcrowding, poor nutrition, high temperatures, or if they're young and their immune system is still developing. How to tell if your chicken has parasites? Luckily, most of the symptoms of parasites are the same. Unfortunately, those symptoms can also be the same as a lot of other illnesses, not parasite related. So unless you can see the lice or mites, or your chicken has worms visible in their stool, you may need to see a vet or do the best you can to rule out other problems. And that's because while your chicken may in fact have parasites, you may have the which came first, the chicken or egg scenario. Sorry for the bad pun. What I mean is, did your chicken get ill from the parasites, or is something else causing your chicken to be sick, and that allowed the small number of parasites your chicken already had to multiply? If your chicken is showing the following symptoms, you may have a parasite infestation. If they have lost a lot of weight, if they've got diarrhea or unusual looking droppings, they could be slowing down in egg production, they may be weak or have a lack of energy, they may be sleepy looking, they may have pale combs and wattles, and they may also look dull and unkempt. Remember, these symptoms are present because those parasites are stealing nutrients from your chickens, and in some cases they cause blood loss, whether they consume it directly in the case of external parasites or from the damage done by internal parasites when they burrow and attach themselves into their GI tract or other organs. Now, if they have external parasites, you can still see all of those symptoms in addition to feather loss. They can also have scabs or sores on their skin, dirty feathers, especially around the vent area, and you may see them excessively preening and scratching. Not to mention, you may actually see the mites or lice on your chickens if you push their feathers aside and look at the shafts. And for some mites, remember, you may have to do this at night since that's when they're active. Lastly, scaly leg mites are a bit different in that they burrow under the scales on your chicken's legs and feet. They feed off of the skin and tissue, and as they move around eating and pooping, they cause the scales to become raised and crusty. Ultimately, this is going to lead to their feet and legs becoming red and inflamed. They'll become thicker and deformed, and they may also limp or have trouble perching. Now, how can you prevent your chickens from getting parasites in the first place? First, let me say that you will drive yourself crazy trying to eliminate all the potential ways your chickens can get parasites. If I can give you any advice, do what you can and really concentrate on the things that make sense for you, because every situation is different. The most important things are to support your chicken's immune system and have good hygiene in your coop and run. You've got natural preventions and chemical preventions. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you're regularly removing poop from their roosting bars and nesting boxes. If you don't use the deep litter method for your bedding inside the hen house, you do need to make sure that you're cleaning out your coop regularly. You want to provide them with a dust bath. You can offer them fermented feed and water that's been acidified. And I have videos on both of those things that you can check out if you have any questions about how to make them and how they help with parasite prevention and overall health. You can also add herbs and even diatomaceous earth to their feed. Yes, I said diatomaceous earth again. I'm not necessarily suggesting it as a parasite prevention for internal parasites because the data is inconclusive on that. But it does provide trace minerals and other health benefits, and if it turns out that it does help with internal parasites, even better. If you are worried about respiratory issues and diatomaceous earth, you can certainly mix the diatomaceous earth into some wet fermented feed, and they'll at least get the health benefit from it without breathing it in. Just be sure you're using food grade diatomaceous earth because that has the least amount of crystalline silica in it, and it also, you can be sure it doesn't have any other pesticides in it. I also add diatomaceous earth to their dust bath because it is effective at controlling and killing external parasites. But again, there are other options if you're not comfortable using it. You also want to keep rodents away and, if possible, wild birds. I mean, if your chickens are free ranging, I'm pretty sure you're not going to keep them from contacting the droppings from wild birds, rodents, and all the other animals that frequent your yard. Oh, and just try to keep them from eating worms or other insects that carry parasites. Not gonna happen. As for chemical prevention, some people deworm their chickens on a schedule. Others prefer to deworm only when there's an infestation. The upside to deworming regularly, say in the spring and then again in the fall, with a deworming drug is that you're gonna keep the parasite levels low enough so that you have a better chance at preventing heavy infestations. And heavy infestations are a life and death situation. And sometimes by the time you catch it, your chicken or other animal may be too sick to recover. The downside to deworming regularly is that dewormers are becoming less and less effective. In the same way that you have antibiotic resistant bacteria or antiviral resistant viruses, there's more and more antiparasitic resistance. Personally, I only treat with dewormers when there's evidence of an infestation. Believe me, I can totally see the value in regular deworming because when there's an outbreak, you may need to act fast and everyone has to be treated, and the coop and run also have to be cleaned and treated. So that is a royal pain. But I'd be more devastated if the parasites became resistant to the available drugs and I'm left with no options to treat my chickens if things got bad. So I do all the prevention I can and then just go into panic mode when it fails. Right? Right, Norma? All right, this is where I'm gonna stop this video. Like I said in the beginning, this is going to be a several-part topic, and I want to roll the videos out quickly over the next 2 weeks so you have access to them sooner than later. In the meantime, be sure to check out some more Tater Town videos, and be sure to subscribe so that you do get a notification when these upcoming videos drop. Right, Norma? And thanks again for tuning in.
And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you can see more videos that will help you do those things you never thought you could.